Today I am going to read the Bill of Rights and possibly all of the amendments to the United States Constitution, depending on how much I got time. Because I don't think many people know their rights, they don't know the amendments, they've never read the Constitution, and they may have never actually even heard the Constitution. Excuse me. So, hopefully this is my last reading of the Constitution series. I may do a individual article and section parts of each right, each amendment, and each part of the Constitution of the United States. I may do a individual commentary explanation videos of each one. But right now, as it stands, I am just doing a reading. So, I'm reading it directly out of a book. An American government book that was taught in school. So, this is the very government's education's issued stuff. Everybody knows that everybody should know the Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments to the United States of America's Constitution. All of the other amendments, which there are 22 of them, I believe. Yes, there are 22 amendments to the United States of America's Constitution. The first 10 are the Bill of Rights, which were shortly ratified and created around the same time as the Constitution was ratified and created. So, without further ado, let's read them. Article 1, or Amendment 1. Freedom of religion, of speech, and of the press, right of petition. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. 2. Article 2, Amendment 2. Right to keep arms. Arms means weapons to any of you who do not understand what the word arms means. It's a shortened word for the word armaments. Arms is shortened from armaments. Armaments in modern day translation means weapons. So, Article 2, right to keep arms. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Don't forget about that comma, people. Article 3, quartering of soldiers in private houses. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Article 4, search warrants, or Amendment 4, search warrants. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Has to be precise, y'all. 5. Article 5, Amendment 5. Criminal proceedings. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising of the land or naval forces or in the militia. They have their own military tribunals for the military. When in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put to jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. 6. Amendment 6, Article 6, Criminal Proceedings. Continue. In any criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and case of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process of obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Article 7, or Amendment 7, Jury Trial in Civil Cases. In suits at common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States, then according to the rules of common law. You can have a trial by jury for someone for a lawsuit of literally $20. $20 back then was a lot of money, though. So, Article 8. Excessive punishments. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Article Amendment 9. Unenumerated rights of the people. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be constrained to deny or dispatch others retained by the people. Article Amendment 10. Powers reserved to the states. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people, aka states' rights. Article 11. This is where we're finally out of the Bill of Rights. We are now with amendments to the actual Constitution of the United States. Suits against states. The judicial power of the United States shall not be constrained to extend to any suit in law or equality commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of another state, or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. 12. Election of President and Vice President. See, they changed how we elected the President and Vice President. 1. The electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for President and Vice President, one of whom at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves. They shall name in their ballots the person voted for as President, and in district ballots the person voted for as Vice President, and they shall make district lines of all persons voted for as President, and of all persons voted for as Vice President, and of all the number of votes for each, which list they shall sign and certify and transmit sealed to the seat of the government of the United States, directed to the President of the United States. The President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and the House of Representatives, open all the certificates, and a vote shall then be counted. The person having the greatest number of votes for President shall be the President, and such number of the majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and in no person have such a matter the whole number of electors appointed, and if no persons have such a majority, 10 from a person's having the highest numbers, not exceeding 3 on the list of those voted for as president. The House of Representatives shall choose immediately by ballot the president, but in choosing the president, the vote shall be taken by states. The representation from each state having one vote, a quorum for the purpose, shall consist of a member or members from 2/3 of the states, and the majority of all states shall be necessary to a choice, and in the House of Representatives shall not choose a president, whatever the right of choice shall devolve upon them. Before the 4th day of March next following, then the vice president shall act as president, as in the case of a death or other constitutional disability of the president. 2. The person having the greatest number of votes as vice president shall be the vice president, in such number as the majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no person have a majority, then from the 2 highest numbers of the list, Senate shall choose the vice president. A quorum for the purpose shall consist of 2/3 of the whole number of senators. A majority of the whole number shall be necessary to choice, but no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of the vice president of the United States. Now we elect president and vice president at the same time. So this is law. This has also been changed. Article 13. Slavery. Subject a lot of people don't want to talk about, but slavery. Section 1. The abolishment of slavery. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, meaning the government has the right to put your ass to work when you go to jail. You are the government slave when you're in jail. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except for as punishment for crime, wherefore the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Section 2. The powers of Congress. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Article 14. Article 14. Civil rights, appointment of representatives, political disabilities, public debt, that kind of stuff. Section 1, Civil rights. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the states wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without the process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Section 2. Appointment of representatives. Representatives shall be appointed among the several states according to their representative numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. But when the right to vote at any election for the choice of electors for president and vice president of the United States, representatives in Congress, the executive and judicial officers of the state, or the members of the legislative thereof, is denied to any of the state of the members of the legislative thereof, is denied to any of the male inhabitants of such state, being 21 years of age and citizens of the United States, or any way abridged except for participation in rebellion or other crimes. The basis of representation therein shall be reduced in the proportion which the number of such male citizens shall bear in the whole number of male citizens to 21 years of age in each state. This is where black people got the right to vote, and everybody age 21 got the right to vote, and you didn't just have to own property to vote anymore. Section 3. Political disabilities. No person shall be senator or representative in Congress, or elector of president and vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress, or as an officer of the United States, or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, but Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Section 4. Public debt. The fidelity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred by payment of pensions and bounties for services in supporting insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss of emancipation of any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. Section 5. Power of Congress. The Congress shall have power to enforce by adequate legislation true provision of this article. Article 15. Suffrage. Right of suffrage. The other one was, since black people are still not allowed to vote in some cases, even though they had to make an article for you black people to vote. So don't get mad at me when I use the word Negro, because it says so right here. As you can see, it says Negro. That's what was written down in the Constitution. That's what it says. Don't get mad at me. Don't accuse me of racism or anything, because I'm reading directly from this book, a American government book written in 1955, reading directly from the Constitution, the article, the amendments to the Constitution, Article 15, right of suffrage. Section 1 says right there, as you can plainly see, I'm pointing it to it, right of Negro to vote. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous conditions of servitude. Section 2. The power of Congress. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Article 16. The income tax. This article is definitely something that we need to repeal this income tax. This should be repealed. The Congress made this law so they could collect more money. Most people even believed income tax was unconstitutional. That's why they had to make it constitutional. They had to make the income tax constitutional by creating an article, an amendment to the Constitution, because income tax was and is still unconstitutional, because this is an unconstitutional amendment to the Constitution to steal your money, because taxation is theft. Article 14. Income tax. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. They pretty much gave themselves free rein to tax the hell out of you. And that's why this amendment should be abolished. Article 17. Senate election and vacancies. The Senate of the United States shall be comprised of 2 senators from each state elected by the people thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall... See, they're redoing the senator thing now. Shall have 1 vote. The electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of most numerous branches of the state legislatives when vacancies happen, and the representation of any state in the Senate. The executive authority of such state shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies, provided that the legislator of any state may empower the executive thereof to make temporary appointments until the people fill the vacancies by electors as the legislative may direct. This amendment shall not be so constrained as to affect the election or term of any senator chosen before it became valid as part of the Constitution. Article 18 is Prohibition. National Prohibition. It's when they got rid of alcohol. We kind of have the drug. We have the war on drugs going on right now. I don't know why they didn't learn from the war on alcohol and creating prohibition, but they should have learned because, and literally 2 or 3 more amendments later, they repealed this. Section 1, Prohibition of Intoxicating Liquors. After 1 year from the ratification of this article, the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within the importation thereof into or the exportation thereof from the United States and all territories subject to jurisdiction thereof or beverage purposes and hereby prohibited. Section 2, Concurrent Enforcement. The Congress and the several states shall have concurrent power to enforce the article by appropriate legislation. Section 3, Conditions of Ratification. The article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislative of the several states and providing a Constitution within several years of the date of submission hereby to the States Congress. Women convinced men they didn't need to drink alcohol. It was the temperance movement. They won this, and when women get one thing they want more. So, see, what's the exact very next thing that happened? Boom! Article 19, Amendment 19. Women's suffrage. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state or account of sex. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Hey, y'all women, y'all can vote? Guess what that means? That means you're equal to men now. You have the right to vote, which makes you exactly equal with us. So stop trying to be better than us and stop trying to... You got your equality right smack there. There was your equality. You got your equality way back in the 19th Amendment. But you got one thing, you want another, and another, and another. You can't be satisfied. You don't know what you want. Article 20, changing the time of convening Congress and of inauguring the President and Vice President. Section 1, terms of President and Vice President. The terms of the President and Vice President shall end at noon on the 20th day of January, and the terms of Senators and Representations at the noon of the 3rd day of January, of the years in which such terms would have ended if this article had not been ratified, and the terms of their successors shall then begin. Section 2, meetings of Congress. The Congress shall assemble at least once in every year, and such meeting shall begin at noon on the 3rd day of January, unless they shall by law appoint a different date. Section 3. Interim Secession. If at the time fixed for the beginning of the term of President, President-elect shall have died, the Vice President-elect shall become President, if President shall not have been chosen before the time fixed for the beginning of his term, or if the President-elect shall have failed to qualify. Then the Vice President-elect shall act as President until a President shall have been qualified, and the Congress may by law provide for the case wherein neither a President-elect nor a Vice President-elect shall have qualified, declaring who shall then act as President, or the manner in which one who is to act shall be selected, and such person shall act accordingly. Section 4, Congressional Choice. The Congress may, by law, provide for the case of the deaf or any other persons from whom the House of Representatives may choose a President, whenever the right of choice shall have devolved upon them, and for the case of the death of any other persons from whom the Senate may choose a Vice President, whenever the right of choice shall have devolved upon them. Section 5, time of effect. Section 1 and 2 shall take effect on the 15th day of October following the ratification of this article. Section 3. Conditions and ratification. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states within 7 years from the date of submission. Article 21. Repealing the national prohibition and prohibiting the importation of intoxicating liquors in states in violation of their laws. Section 1. Statement of repeal. The 18th article of amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed. Section 2. Conditions of transportation or importation. The transportation or importation into any state, territory, or possession of the United States for delivery or use therein of intoxicating liquors in violation of the laws thereof is hereby prohibited. Section 3. Conditions of ratification. The article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by convention in the several states as provided in the Constitution within 7 years from the date of the submission hereby of the states of Congress. Article 22. Limiting presidential tenure to 2 full terms and not more than 10 years. Section 1. Limiting presidential tenure and exception. No person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of president more than once. But this article shall not apply to any person holding office of president when this article was proposed by the Congress, and shall not prevent any person who may be holding the office of president or acting as president during the term within which this article becomes operative from holding the office of president. Section 2. Conditions of ratification. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislature of 3/4 of the several states within 7 years and date of the submission of states. There's been a few more amendments, so I will have to find another book that has those in it. But this is all that they had in 1955 in this American government book. Hold on, I will find the rest. Here, this book right here has the rest of the amendments to the Constitution. 23. Voting in the District of Columbia. Presidential electors for the District of Columbia, the district containing the city government of the United States, shall appoint in such manner as the Congress may direct. A member of electors of president and vice president equal to the whole number of senators and representatives of Congress to which the district would be entitled if it were a state, but in no event more than the least populous state. They shall be, in addition to these appointed by the states, but they shall be considered for the purposes of the election of president and vice president to be electors appointed by the state, and they shall meet in the district and perform such duties as provided by the 12th article of amendment. 2. Enforcement. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriately. Amendment 24. Voter qualifications in federal elections. 1. Bearing poll tax in federal elections, the right of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary other elections for president or vice president for electors for president or vice president or for senator or representatives in Congress shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state by reason or failure to pay any poll tax or other taxes. You don't have to pay to vote anymore. Enforcement. The Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Amendment 25. Presidential disability and secession. Again, another presidential change system. This was made in 1967. Secession 1. Secession vice president of the presidency in case of the removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. Vacancy 2. Vacancy in office of vice president. Whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote of both houses of Congress. 3. Vice president as acting president whenever the president transmits to president pro tempore of the Senate and Speaker of the House of Representatives has written declaration that he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by Vice President as acting President. 4. Vice President, acting President. Whenever the Vice President and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or such other body as Congress may by law provide transmit to the President pro tempore as the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties as office of acting President. Thereafter, when the President transmits to the President pro tempore of the Senate of the House of Representatives as written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers, duties of his office unless the Vice President and the majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such Therefore, when the President transmits the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives has written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of the office unless the Vice President, majority of either the principal officers and the executive department or of such other body as Congress may by law provide transmit within 4 days of the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. Thereupon Congress shall decide the issue, assuming within 48 hours of that purpose is not the session, if the Congress within 20 days after receipt of the letter written declaration, or if Congress not in secession within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble to determine the two-thirds vote of both houses and the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall continue to discharge the same as acting President, otherwise the President shall assume the powers and duties of office. And Amendment 24. 18-year-olds are allowed to vote in 1971. I believe this is the last amendment. The right of the citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state or on account of age. The Congress shall have power to enforce the article by appropriate legislation. So, that's been the Constitution series. All the amendments, all the bills of rights, the amendments, etc. Remember, God is good all the time. God is good. Jesus loves you. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I hope you've learned something. And I will probably do little breakdowns of commentary of which each one of these amendments and each one of these articles and whatnot mean. And everyone have a great day. So, later.